So congratulations, your closing date is almost here. We're about 90% done at this point, but there's still a lot left to do. So listen up. We've got a lot going on the next week or so before you close, so there's a ton I'm going to pack in this video. So to make things easier for you, we're going to break this into 3 major categories we're going to talk about here. 1 is your financing, 2 is your walkthrough, and 3 is the actual closing itself. So let's talk about your financing. If you're a cash buyer, all you really need to worry about is how much you're going to be setting up for your wire on the day of closing and where it's going to be going to. So the attorney will reach out to you with instructions on that. Now, most of us are going through traditional financing to get a mortgage. So obviously you want to stay in touch with your lender. So that's pretty common sense. So just make sure you're getting them everything they need to get it clear to close. If you've already got it, great. They're also going to be sending you a full breakdown of your closing costs. And they're going to be letting you know, probably within 24 to 48 hours of the actual closing date, how much money you're going to need to bring to closing. If that amount is less than $50,000, you can bring it as a cashier's check. So you'll go to your bank, you'll let them know, hey, I've got a home closing I'm going to tomorrow or the day of, and simply tell them how much you'll need to bring. Your lender's usually going to give you that amount and a little extra, and if you bring too much, they'll just give you that money back right there at the closing. If you are putting down more than $50,000, you're going to have to set up that through a wire. So between the attorney and myself, we'll make sure to get you the wire instructions so you know exactly how to get that set up and everything goes smooth at the closing. Just remember, it doesn't matter how much you're putting down. The lender is not going to have the final figures on how much you need to bring to the closing until maybe 24 to 48 hours, best case, before the actual closing. Number 2, let's talk about your final walkthrough. The final walkthrough is done usually the day of closing, so we can be sure that the owner of the property is all moved out and we can get a really good look at it before you finally take possession of the home. You don't want to do this too soon because then there's always that risk that something can happen from the time you walk through to when you actually close, and we really want to avoid any risks that we can. What are we looking for at the final walkthrough? We want to review any home inspection items that should have been addressed by the seller prior to closing. So everything that we put in writing between the attorneys, if we have something, we just want to go through that again to make sure that the seller has completed it, provided invoices, and that it's all good. It's also another chance for you to look at the home. Obviously, we haven't been here since the home inspection, so you want to take another look. Just make sure everything's intact. Make sure that all the appliances are included that they said were going to be included. Window treatments. We really just want to make sure the seller hasn't left with anything that they weren't supposed to. And really, this is just one last chance for you to get a set of eyes on the home before you close and take possession. The actual walkthrough itself should not take more than 30 to 45 minutes. If it's a larger home, maybe up to an hour. The last part we're going to talk about today is the actual closing itself. So this is it. This is when you actually take possession of the home and get to call it yours. You want to make sure you bring your ID, driver's license, state ID, bring a backup just in case. Number 2, you want to make sure you have your funds ready for closing. So again, if it's less than $50,000, bring it as a cashier's check. If it's more than $50,000, make sure you have your wire set up. At the closing, if any issues come up from the walkthrough, this is when we take time to deal with those. So between the realtors and the attorneys, we'll usually come to some kind of resolution and really just to get to the bottom of it, make sure it's fair, and make sure everything's resolved. Once we get to the closing, the attorney is going to meet us there, and they'll be able to walk us through all the paperwork. So you're going to be doing a lot of signing. A lot of what you'll see in the paperwork is very repetitive throughout. You'll sign the lender package, you'll sign some additional documents, and then really everything goes off to the lender. We wait for their approval, and then after that, we find out the good news that they've issued your funding and you're good to go. Once you've closed on the property and the lender has issued funding, it's all yours. So you take the keys, garage door openers, and you can start moving in right after. As always, if you have any questions about what to do during this process, feel free to reach out to myself or the attorney, and we'll help explain to you on what to do or what's going to happen next. If you get a chance, click on the like button below or leave a comment with some feedback and tell me what you thought of this video and whether it was helpful to you or not.